Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you very much for having me out. I'm really enjoying my visit to Rock Springs so far. I've always dreamed of one day living in this area where it actually gets cold. Down in San Antonio, cold for us is like 50 degrees, and last Wednesday it actually got up to 84, which is just not right for mid-March. So I'm really enjoying this weather. I was pretty excited when Joy asked me to present about connecting a large non-instructional staff to the core mission of the institution, because that's one of our primary focuses at UTSA right now. So when I read the presentation topic, I thought this is great. I'll talk about building a 4-step plan to creating a shared vision. I'll use all the buzzwords that really prove I know what I'm talking about, and I'll show charts and graphs of employee engagement levels to show how we've successfully created that shared vision at UTSA, but then I thought that's not really my style. And so I decided to tell you a story instead. This is a story about a young boy who grew up in San Antonio, Texas. That's me on the right. No, not the one in the dress, the other one. I played soccer as a kid, and I grew up in the blink of an eye like most kids do, eventually graduating from Taft High School, which at that time was way out on the outskirts of San Antonio. I went on to graduate from UTSA with a business degree while I was working full-time as a banking supervisor. But during that time, after a few years, I realized that I couldn't quite connect my role to the overall mission of that organization, and so I needed a change. During that time, I also started a family. I was offered an opportunity at UTSA as an administrative associate, overseeing the UTSA card office and customer service for meal plans, dining, bookstore, and vending-related issues. It was a small office back then, so I also helped out with accounting and maintenance reporting wherever I was needed. Right away, I could see that I was helping students and providing a service to the university, but still the mission of the university was all about student success, enrollment growth, serving the community, and infrastructure growth. I couldn't see how helping a student select the best meal plan for their needs really fit into any of those things. So I started asking questions. How does what we do impact the core mission of the institution? And the answer that I received was that we are support services and are a vital part of the college life experience. And although we might not directly impact any of the strategic objectives, we provide the tools by which others achieve success for the institution. That was a really good textbook answer. But it wasn't quite what I was looking for. I was really hoping for a direct tie. But it was certainly better than any link I had before, so I went with it. Now, right about that time, Parking and Transportation Services moved under the reporting umbrella of Auxiliary Services. And that group had a reputation on campus. So how many of you have come from larger universities or have had experience with larger universities? Anybody? Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar with larger universities, a lot of times Parking and Transportation Services are the bad guys. They're the ones out there writing the tickets. They're the ones that charge too much for a parking permit and things of that nature. So they definitely had a reputation on campus. We now joke that parking is the department that everyone loves to hate, but back then I can assure you it was for a good reason. They had a customer service problem, and I truly believe that it's because they couldn't see how their role fit into the overall mission of the university. So I went to work to improve that customer service issue. I created customer service standards and began communicating that our role is to support university success, and part of that requires that our students, faculty, and staff have a positive experience when interacting with our office so that they can focus on why they're really here. And I'm proud to say that as a result of just those small efforts, customer satisfaction went from about 35% to about 75% in just 1 year. Over the years, my family continued to grow, and then I met the person who would become the greatest mentor I've ever had. she pushed me to further define how we impact the core mission of the institution. And so I worked more with our teams, and we arrived at the motto, enhancing the campus experience. This was a great next step. First, that teamwork and all that talking about the mission really helped build buy-in and created a shared understanding of the vision. Second, we created something that could clearly and concisely define our role to everyone else within our department and to those outside our organization as well. So this was great. We had a motto that we could all rally behind, but we needed a little bit more detail. And so we worked on it some more, and we came to the idea that we enhance the campus experience by providing resources outside the classroom that increase student success inside the classroom. With that, I can more clearly tie the mission of the university to my previous example of helping that student select the best meal plan. Because by not having to worry about when, where, or how that student will eat, they can focus more on what is truly important. The next step was to get everyone else on board through communicating that brand statement in everything we do. One place we started was in our weekly staff meetings. For several years, we conducted the old reliable weekly staff meeting that involved topics like, how was everyone's weekend? Does anyone have any major projects coming up? Are there any university-wide events that we all need to be aware of? It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't very good either. And so we changed it. We focused the meeting around enhancing the campus experience and gave it more structure so that we would spend about 5 minutes talking about how we enhanced the campus experience in the prior week. Then we spend about 5 minutes enhancing our own campus experience through a rotating professional development presentation. And then 5 minutes talking about how we would enhance the campus experience in the week ahead through event support and project partnerships. And we made sure to repeat that brand statement as many times as possible, so much so that it actually became a little informal competition to see who could say enhancing the campus experience the most times in a normal conversation. I'm at 8, by the way. It also became my personal elevator speech. So when someone asks me, what kind of work do you do? Well, I enhance the campus experience at UTSA by providing resources outside the classroom that increase student success inside the classroom. Having that brand statement also proved useful a few years later when my mentor led the creation of the peanut butter parking campaign at UTSA. And just a brief overview of that program, during the first 2 weeks of the fall semester, everyone's allowed to pay eligible parking citations with a donation of peanut butter, which we take to the local food bank. It's a pretty big hit. But when we first started that program, our parking enforcement staff was a bit reluctant because I still think they couldn't understand how their role impacted the mission of the university. They still thought their job was to catch the bad guys and make them pay. But through discussions, we reminded them that our job is to enhance the campus experience. And for their particular role, that just means educating the campus community on the parking rules. By collecting peanut butter instead of money, we're still educating the campus community, but we're also moving the needle on serving the community, which is another key strategic objective. My family continued to grow. Sorry, I forgot to click. But just so you can see, this was something that we developed around enhancing the campus experience and our departmental logo, all the peanut butter that we collected. And so now that I'm back on track, my family continued to grow, and we continued communicating that brand. And then our beloved president of 17 years announced his retirement. The university hired a new president who started in the fall of 2017, and from the word go, we could all tell that this was going to be an experience. And it has been a great experience. Right away, he started using words that most people on our campus weren't used to hearing. He said things like key performance indicators, metrics, results, data-driven decision-making, analytics, measure, data. These were foreign concepts to most of us. I mean, sure, we had heard all these things. We knew what they were, but up to that point, nobody ever really expected us to actually do them. He did. And I can tell you there's been a lot of moaning and groaning around our university for the past year or so. Not me. I don't know why, but there was just something about the opportunity to further connect our role to the mission of the institution that excited me. And so I jumped in with both feet. We had already been doing an annual report for a few years, so the data wasn't an issue. And again, this project gave me the opportunity to further tie our role to the core mission of the institution with data, provable data, not just words like we had before. For example, one of the things we were measuring was dining sales at our dining venues. And that's a great measure of how much money your dining venues are making, but making money at dining venues wasn't one of our president's primary objectives. So we went back to the basics, back to the root of what we do. How do we enhance the campus experience? And through our discussions, we arrived at 4 main departmental goals. We want to reduce the financial debt burden for our students, which speaks to student success. We want to reduce our infrastructure demand, which speaks to growing the infrastructure. We want to create opportunities for community involvement, which speaks to serving the community. And we want to increase service satisfaction, which speaks again to student success. And then we looked at the specific things that we were already doing that impacted those departmental goals. So reducing the financial debt burden. I already mentioned the peanut butter parking campaign. That program has since expanded into another program called Toys for Tickets with the same basic concept. We also allow volunteer hours to count as payment for parking citations, which we do throughout the year. For dining, we changed it to measure the number of value meal offerings that we have available on campus. We also noticed a trend that a lot of our dining transactions occurred at some of our more expensive national brand venues. And so we created metrics and tactics around increasing foot traffic to our local brands where we have more control over the menu and price point. Reducing infrastructure demand, and this particularly speaks to parking. And the idea is that by reducing the amount of parking required, and parking on our campus is a congestion, it's congested. But by reducing the amount of parking required, that physical space could be used for more university growth. So we bus students from off campus. We offer free parking permits to carpools. We encourage the use of bikes around campus. And we have a partnership with Zipcar, which is a car sharing service that allows us to park a few of these shareable cars on our campus that the students can schedule and rent by the hour. So we no longer have to worry about 200 students all bringing their individual cars. They all just share these. All of these things are measurable and directly impact our strategic goals. Again, by reducing the amount of space required for parking, those resources can be better allocated for university growth. Increasing opportunities for community involvement. I also mentioned peanut butter, Toys for Tickets, and volunteering, but we also contribute 1,800 meals to our on-campus food pantry to help students with food insecurity issues. And we created a Campus Services Fiesta food drive where we give away Campus Services Fiesta medals in exchange for a donation to the food pantry. We also use that opportunity as an opportunity to educate the campus community about the benefits of alternative transportation, which then ties that event to 2 of our departmental goals. Last year was the inaugural year of the event. We didn't know how successful it was going to be, so we only ordered 250 of these Fiesta medals, but we ended up collecting over 900 pounds of donations for our campus food pantry to help students who might not otherwise have been able to eat. Increasing service satisfaction. And I think that everything that we do really speaks to service satisfaction, particularly those measurable items that I mentioned before, like peanut butter or Toys for Tickets. We use those numbers of impacted individuals as a measure of service satisfaction because Let's be honest. I just saved that person up to $125 in parking fines. Who wouldn't be satisfied? But this also speaks to a bigger campus impact story. And through the accolades and awards our teams have won over the years, I can assure you these programs have had a significant impact on service satisfaction. But we do also conduct regular satisfaction surveys, as I'm sure that you do as well. And these have shown significant improvement since we began in 2009. I think that connecting the dots like this was really the last piece of the puzzle that I really needed. It feels good to know that everything I'm doing has a direct impact on the core mission of the institution. Whether I'm the one in the classroom doing the teaching or not. And to know that every other department at UTSA was undergoing this exact same exercise told me two things. First, that I wasn't alone in my need to understand how I fit. Everyone fits. It doesn't matter how far you think your role is from the core mission of the institution. Everything that you do has a direct impact on how we make sure that students are our focus. But I know you can't always connect the dots by yourself. At UTSA, we created university-wide teams that really helped us to figure out what are we already doing, how do we measure it, what strategic objective or tactic does it contribute to, is it sustainable, or does it create enough of an impact to merit the cost? Once our teams put all these pieces together, it really helped us to connect the dots along our path to student success, because that's what all of these things really boil down to. Whether you're the one in the classroom doing the teaching or not, everything that we do is to make sure that our students are successful. So what have I learned through this process, and what are my commitments to you if I'm fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work with you further? First, I can tell you that I'm going to ask a lot of questions as I get to know each of you and you get to know me. For example, what is going on here? Is this the initiation for all new employees? It was. I want to hear from each of you. I want to hear how you feel you contribute to the core mission of the institution. And if you can't see it yet, that's okay. It's perfectly fine if you're in the same place that I was when I first started working at UTSA. Maybe you can see that you're providing a service to our students, but you just can't quite connect the dots on how that service relates to the core mission. But I promise, as we work through this process together, you will be able to see that direct link. As part of asking questions, I'm going to ask that you talk among your teams about how you impact the mission. Is there a brand statement that really sums up your departmental impacts that you can all get behind? If not a brand statement, what can you do to help your teams understand their role? And don't try to develop these things by yourself. Work with your teams. As I mentioned before, that teamwork creates buy-in and connects that team to the process and generates a shared understanding of the vision. Even if they can't quite connect the dots just yet, this starts the ball rolling in the right direction. And I realize that I'm not just talking to supervisors here today. I realize that I'm asking everybody to engage in a little 360-degree leadership. And I'm confident that everyone has the potential to influence their organization at all levels in their department. I'll ask that we make sure that we're all singing the same song when talking about the Western Vision. It may sound trivial, but using consistent language is crucial to this process. Something as simple as changing "students are our focus" to "we focus on students" changes the meaning and can create room for misunderstanding. So let's make sure that we're all using the consistent messaging that was developed for the guiding principles and the strategic plan. Once we've established a baseline, once we know where everyone is in terms of their understanding of the vision, once we've had some initial conversations with our teams, and once we've made certain that we're all speaking the same language, I'll ask that we begin incorporating that language into everything that we do. And remember that not every department is necessarily going to impact all of the strategic objectives. A department might not even impact all of the tactics within a given objective. So let's identify those that we do impact, and let's talk about them all the time. Talk about them in our weekly staff meetings. Talk about them in your one-on-one meetings with your supervisors or your staff. Tell your story of how you are moving the needle on persistence and completion, or how you are redefining service to the institution. Chances are good that you're already doing these things, but you might not be using that language, and therefore you might not even realize that you're having these conversations. Then let's find ways to measure these impacts. I know a lot of people were reluctant to get on board when we first started talking about using KPIs and metrics at UTSA, but there's something remarkable that happens when you can physically see the data that proves you moved the needle forward and progressed your institution along its path to providing high-quality learning opportunities for students and employees, to enriching the community's cultural life, to enhancing the awareness of the community's unique heritage and environment, and to adapting to the changing needs of local business and industry, primarily within our service area of Southwest Wyoming. And since we now have those measurements, let's use those measurements to make data-driven decisions about our future. And that's hold each other accountable for what we say we are going to do. I expect to be held accountable for these promises I'm making to you today, because being held accountable makes us all better. And I promise that everything we do, we're going to do together. I've said this before, and I'll continue saying it even though it's a bit cliche: no person is an island. It doesn't matter if you're a CPA, an MBA, or a PhD. Nobody can do everything by themselves. Even if they could, they shouldn't, and so I won't. We're going to work together on everything. That is how we will build a shared vision. For example, I want to talk to each department about the budget. I want to hear from you what your needs are and how you're using your limited resources to move the needle forward on student success. So we'll hold town hall style meetings and listening sessions to get your feedback. And in some cases, we may hold smaller targeted meetings with departments who may have unique opportunities to discuss in more detail. We're going to be completely transparent in everything we do. We're going to do what we say, and we're going to say what we do. I really believe that by working together and communicating openly and honestly, we can help each other understand how we connect to the core mission of the institution. Sometimes it just helps to talk through these things with another person, and I want to help build on the existing avenues that are here for that collaborative dialogue. I want to close today by saying thank you. Thank you to the physical resources team for making sure that we have a safe and inviting atmosphere that makes our students want to come to class. Change is inevitable as we grow, and you will prove that adapting to change defines our future. Thank you to the human resources team for making it possible to hire such excellent faculty to teach our students, and for providing opportunities for us to show that our employees are our most important resource. Thank you to the teams at Mustang Central and Mustang Success. At UTSA, we call you the Department of Job Security, because without you bringing in all these new students, none of us would be here, because students are our focus. To the teams in the Children's Center, Community Education and Distance Learning, Gear Up, and the Learning Center, thank you for your commitment to student success for our current and future students. and for the work that you do to make sure that the community is our partner. Thank you to everyone who, by aligning your role with the guiding principles, ensure that ethical standards guide our actions. Learning is our purpose, and to the faculty in the room who are the academic and educational face of Western, thank you for your commitment to our vision. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention this afternoon, and I welcome any questions that you might have. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you said you enjoyed this type of climbing canal. How does your family feel about it?
They feel the exact same way, actually. My kids, this is Jennifer, Layla, and Alex. They're 11, 8, and 6. And they are really jealous that I got to see snow. They've seen snow twice in their life, and once was because we went on a trip to Denver. Who else? Yes, ma'am.
So when you did the peanut butter thing, the toys for tickets and the peanut butter thing,
Right.
Did you receive any pushback about the loss of revenue from your parking fees?
We did not. We determined and we presented it in such a way that the positive exposure for the university far outweighed that loss of revenue. And quite honestly, there wasn't really a loss of revenue because during the first 2 weeks of the fall semester, we were only issuing warning tickets anyway. So we never expected to get that revenue. We just changed those warning tickets to actual tickets with a dollar amount attached to them and let everybody get it for free. Yes, ma'am.
What experience do you have with the ADA or disability services?
So we have a department at UTSA that really oversees that area for all of campus, but I can tell you that maintaining ADA requirements is something that we look at in every project that we do. It doesn't matter if it's building a new parking lot or maintaining an existing parking lot and getting it brought back up to the ADA code if it's not already there. It's something that's at the forefront of our minds in every project that we undertake. Yes, ma'am.
You talked about accountability. How did you, if you had any pushback from supervisors or anything like that about buy-in to your vision, how did you hold people accountable?
It really comes down to, as part of leading those groups, it's their job to set their goals for what they're going to provide, right? And so they tell me what they can achieve. We work on it together. And then if they don't reach those goals, then we have further discussion. What happened? Why didn't you reach those goals? I don't want anybody to think that holding each other accountable is necessarily a negative thing. It's more about going back and reevaluating what happened. Did something go wrong? Was it within our control? And how can we improve that moving forward? Does that answer your question? Okay. It really comes down to process improvement. Who else has a question? Yes, ma'am.
You'll see from the parking lots around here that parking isn't a problem for us. And
Right.
I don't think that
That's another thing that I'm really excited about.
I doubt we've ever given a citation out there unless somebody's done something really weird. But so you have the peanut butter initiative and the toys initiative. How would you use those ideas when we don't have a situation like you have with the parking? Because I thought it was very positive, but how do you use it here?
I don't know. I'd have to talk to the teams about that and figure out how we could incorporate those ideas. You know, I know there's definitely opportunities. None of them are coming to mind right now, but I think that's where it comes back to the teamwork and the idea that no person is an island. I think that talking through the teams and just having that open dialogue, those kinds of ideas come out of those conversations. You know, if I shared with this group that, hey, we created this peanut butter parking campaign, how do you think we could build that program here? I don't know. Anybody have any ideas?
I actually think it would be in the snow when you can't see the lines, people who can actually still park in a reasonable way.
That's a unique challenge that I have never faced before. I gotta tell you, on that vein, one of the things that excited me about coming to Western was the fact that parking isn't an issue. For those of you that have been on larger universities before, I don't know if it's common at every university I've ever been to, but parking is a pretty consistent problem across the board. People don't like paying for it, and people don't like it when you tell them they did it wrong. So that's pretty exciting. Who else has a question? If you don't start asking questions, I'm going to just start answering them. I'll make stuff up. So my name really is Burt Reynolds. I'll get that out of the way. My parents were obviously big movie fans. So the actual history of it, one of my grandfather's name was William and the other one's name was Burt, and so it just happened to be that way. I don't drive a black Trans Am. I will be happy to sign autographs for anybody who wants one.
How do you feel that the scope of this potential job, looking at the job description, is different from what you're doing now?
It's a higher level oversight. So right now, I do a lot of the HR functions. I do a lot of the review of the accounting functions. So this is just a higher level. Everything on the surface is pretty much the same, just, yes ma'am.
What are your thoughts going from a university to a community college?
My thoughts about that are really the same thing, the same thoughts that I have about going from a big city to a small town. I think that the fact that you serve 3,200 students, whereas I serve 32,000 students, is a really great thing because I don't get to interact with people on a one-on-one basis. I don't get to know everybody that I work with. There's 4,000 people that work at UTSA. And so it's very possible that I'll walk down the sidewalk and pass 100 people that I've never met before. And that opportunity for community is really what I'm looking for. Who else has questions? Who's willing to volunteer some of their favorite things about working here? Yes, sir.
I would say the people.
Okay.
Nobody laughed. It's true. Honestly, the people, though. I mean, it's because you were talking about the small town mentality, and I think that's what sets this place apart from a lot of other places, even within the state of Wyoming. You come here and it's a little bit closer to a family than it is to just a workplace. And you know, there's some shenanigans that happen. There's bad things that go on sometimes, but it's still a friendly environment. And I'd much rather work in a place where people are open and caring than
Absolutely.
a place where it's just pure business.
Absolutely. You know, that's another one of the negative things about, I don't want to say negative, that's not really true. It's another one of the challenges of working for a big university like that. There's so much bureaucracy because everything has to be done by the book, and when you're talking about these 4,000 employees, there's no fluctuation to handle any situation uniquely. Everything has to be done a set standard way, and I think that the possibility of coming to work for a smaller organization where we can have fun as long as we're operating within the rules is another great benefit. I mean, that's just not something that we do at UTSA right now.
I agree with Derek. I graduated with my nursing degree here a long time ago. And then when I was here, the morale was welcoming and friendly, and it did feel family-like. And I went to work in the hospital setting, and it was not the same morale. It was not the same situation, and it was tough. It was hard. And I always knew that I wanted to come back here because of the morale.
Okay. I can attest to that just from the little bit that I've been around. Joy took me on a short tour as we walked in this morning, and everybody said hi, and she knew them all by name, and there's just no way to do that at UTSA. There's just no way, and that's pretty exciting. So, how many faculty do we have in the room? Show of hands.
Hello
Okay.
there.
How many of you?
First day back from spring break.
Okay. How much time do we have, Joy?
We have about 5 minutes.
Okay. How many of you fall into this category of the non-instructional staff? Is that everybody else? Okay. So is this a missing piece for you guys? Do y'all have trouble figuring out how you connect?
I have
Yes,
a question actually.
Okay.
So if we instruct the instructors, does that count? I feel like we do a lot of teaching. Maybe not to someone specifically called a student.
Or the piece for credit.
Well, thank you guys very much for allowing me to come out here and talk to you. I hope that you got something out of the presentation, and I really hope that I have the opportunity to work with each of you a little bit further as we continue to grow.
Thank you, Bart.
Thank you.